Good afternoon. Today I'm going to take orthomyxovirus. It's very important topic. Nowadays we are seeing pandemic of coronavirus like that. This influenza virus also causes pandemic. Okay. So the name orthomyxoviruses comes under the myxoviruses. The name myxoviruses was used originally for a group of enveloped. This is an RNA virus. So here, this enveloped RNA virus are characterized by their ability to observe onto the mucoreceptors and the red cells. For this reason, this is also called myxovirus. Myxa means the name refer to the affinity of the viruses to the mucins and mucin receptors present on the red blood cells. Not only red blood cells, mucosal cells which are present in the respiratory epithelial cells. Here, this group is reclassified into two separate families. They are Orthomyxoviridae and Paramyxoviridae. This Orthomyxoviridae contains influenza virus. Orthomyxoviridae contains influenza viruses, and Paramyxoviridae family Paramyxoviridae contains some important human causative viruses like Newcastle disease virus, mumps virus, measles virus, parainfluenza virus, and RSV. RSV is nothing but a respiratory syncytial virus. Here, if you see the discovery of this influenza virus, previously the history started. The modern history of this is considered during the period of 1889 to 19. At that period, Pfeiffer were the research scientists first identified Haemophilus influenza, and he told that it was a causative agent for this pandemic. But later, during the period of 1933, Smith, Andrew, and Laidlaw identifies the etiological agent of this pandemic is nothing but the influenza virus, which made the landmark in advances of the medical virology. After that, during the period of 1935, Burnett was a person introduced the cultivation of the virus by using the chick embryos. Later, before that, Shope was a person isolated the swine influenza virus. This swine disease is almost similar to the human influenza virus clinically. So clinically, it is similar to that of the human influenza human influenza. Both are clinically related. So clinical manifestations are similar. And after that, during the period of 1941, Hist, McClelland, and Hurry discovered that these influenza virus has the capability to agglutinate the erythrocytes. Particularly with fowl erythrocytes, guinea pig erythrocytes, some human erythrocytes sometimes. This is about the history of the discovery of influenza virus. If you see the pandemicity of this influenza virus, so many pandemics we had seen in the history. There, the first severe pandemic that occurred during the period of 1918 and 1919. It is nothing but a Spanish influenza, where usually this usually we see the usually complications are seen in old persons or in and children. But here in this in this case of the Spanish influenza, mortality rate is high in young adults. So almost this Spanish influenza killed almost 50 million people worldwide. In India, it killed almost 20 million people. And next one is Asian influenza pandemic that occurred during the period of 1957 and 58. It is seen in China and it killed almost 2 million people. Next one is Hong Kong flu that occurred during the period of 1968 and 69. Spread from Asia to North America. Next one is avian flu threat that occurred during the period of 1997. That this influenza passed from the birds to the humans. Next influenza, that is swine influenza, swine flu that occurred caused by the H1N1 subtype during the period of 2009. That swine flu that is mainly due to the recombinant strains that are present in the pigs, which had spread to the humans. That first appeared in Mexico and spread to the US. If you see the characteristics of this influenza virus, it is a pleomorphic virus. That means pleomorphic means it exists. It doesn't have a shape and size. It exists any shape or size. Usually, this orthomyxovirus. It contains types like based on the internal antigen, that is ribonucleoprotein. It has been divided into types. They are A, B, C. And it measures about diameter 80 to 120 nanometer size. It may exist sometimes as spherical, sometimes as filamentous. It contains a single stranded RNA, that will be negative sense RNA. We have positive sense RNA and negative sense RNA. Here in this case, in the orthomyxovirus, we'll see this negative sense RNA, negative sense single stranded RNA. That to be this single stranded RNA is segmented into 8. So this is the most important characteristic feature of the orthomyxovirus. Okay. Next, it contains two antigens, that is hemagglutinin and neuraminidase, which is present on the surface of the virion. Already told, it contains a negative sense RNA genome, which is segmented to 8. It may be spherical. This is one of the electron microscopic picture. That is, it may exist as a spherical or filamentous forms. Indicating that it may indicating that it may exist. It may be seen as a pleomorphic. So we see the morphology of the orthomyxovirus. It contains already it contains a core which contains 8 segmented genome. Negative sense single stranded RNA, and also contains RNA dependent RNA polymerase enzyme. Here this nucleocapsid is surrounded by an envelope which contains inner protein membrane and outer lipid layer. Okay, inner protein membrane and outer lipid layer. Again, this protein layer contains contains 2 components, that is M1 component and M2 component. This protein component is viral coded. This protein inner protein membrane is virus coded membrane, whereas the other, that is outer membrane, that is lipid envelope, which is post derived. Post derived means where they exist in a particular host. Again, it contains 2 important surface antigens. They are nothing but a triangular hemagglutinin and a mushroom shaped neuraminidase. These are less in number when compared to the hemagglutinin. This is about the morphological structure of the orthomyxovirus. So you should remember it is segmented RNA, 8 segmented RNA genome. If you see the antigenic classification of this orthomyxovirus, it contains internal antigen and surface antigen. Internal antigen and surface antigen. Internal antigen, first one is ribonucleoprotein antigen. It usually present. It is present inside the. It is present inside the cell, and inside the cell, and in the host cell. In the host cell, sometimes it may be seen in the free form. In the free form, and it may exist as a supernet when the fluid, when the specimen fluid is centrifuged. So supernet ga kuda chustam anamata RNP antigen. This is basing on this RNP antigen. These are classified into 3 types. They are type A, type B, and type C. So any type, I mean, any type. If you see there, if you see a strain, a particular strain, it contains a particular antigen only. That means type A strain contains type A strain contains a particular antigens only. It doesn't contain other types. And it is a stable antigen. Doesn't undergo any antigenic variation. Antibodies are seen. I mean, antibodies against this RNP antigen can be seen following the infection, but not following the immunization. It is a stable antigen, and this can be detected by using the immunoprecipitation test and complement fixation test. Okay, this is about the RNP antigen, that is ribonucleoprotein antigen. Next one is M protein antigen. Yes, if you see that this M protein antigen, it is also a stable antigen, stable antigen. Basing on this also, antibodies are here also. Antibodies are formed following the infection, not following the immunization. It is a virus coded. And the next lipid antigen, it is also a stable. It is also a stable one. Next, if you see the surface antigen, previously the surface antigens is described as V antigen. V antigen or viral antigen. These are of 2 types. First one is hemagglutinin antigen, and another one is fluorovirus antigen. This hemagglutinin antigen contains 2 polypeptides. They are HA1 and HA2. These are responsible. This hemagglutinin antigen is responsible to facilitate the virus to absorb onto the mucoprotein receptors present on the erythrocytes, not only on the erythrocytes but also on the receptors which are present on the respiratory epithelial cells. This is one antigen undergoes frequent antigenic variation. Frequent antigenic variation. It is not a stable antigen. Antibodies are formed not only following the infection, but also antibodies are also seen after immunization also. So it is a protective. Antibodies are protective. Here, spelling mistake. Hemagglutinin A1 extra A is there. It is a protective antibody. Antibody against this hemagglutinin is a protective. Prevents the antibody against this hemagglutinin protects the adsorption on the mucoprotein receptors on the erythrocytes or on the mucinous receptors present on the respiratory epithelial cells. Basing on the surface hemagglutinin antigen, 15 subtypes had been identified from the isolates. Identified from the avian influenza avian influenza isolates that means identify చేశారు 15 subtypes. HA1, HA2, HA3, HA4 like that up to HA15. Among these, 4 isolates are seen in the four hemagglutinin antigens subtypes are seen in the human isolates. Next one is with the help of this hemagglutinin, hemagglutination and heme adsorption process can be taken. Next one is neuraminidase. If you see this neuraminidase, it is another glycopeptide enzyme. Here this glycopeptide enzyme removes the receptors which are removes the cell receptors present on the host cells. And the importance of this importance of the antibodies that are present that are produced against neuraminidase is doesn't prevent the adsorption, but it prevents the prevents the release of the progeny virus from the host cell and also restricts the spread of the infection. It doesn't prevent the adsorption. And it is another antigen which undergoes frequent antigenic variations. This hemagglutinin antigen and the neuraminidase antigen undergoes individual antigenic variations. Again, this neuraminidase contains 9 subtypes. Okay, 9 subtypes. Another important point here is the aquatic birds. Birds which are aquatic birds contains full genetic reporting of this influenza virus. Almost all strains of this influenza viral genes are present in the wild aquatic birds. Not only I mean these are major reservoirs. Wild aquatic birds are the major reservoirs for this influenza virus. Because of this antigenic variation, so many antigenic strains are produced. So these are all genetic types are present in the wild aquatic birds. Not only these influenza are present in the wild aquatic birds, they are also present in the whales, next pigs. So many sources are so many reservoirs are also there. In birds, they may present as they may be doesn't cause clinical manifestations in birds. They may occur as natural infection. Doesn't cause any clinical manifestations in the birds, even they are present. They may act as a reservoir of these influenza viral strains. This is about the surface antigen. If you see the hemagglutination, process, when you mix when you mix a clinical suspected sample with a suspension of foul erythrocytes, you may see if the sample contains influenza virus, you may see the agglutination of the erythrocytes. It is due to the uh, it is due to the virus containing hemagglutinin will go and absorb total mucoprotein receptor present on the erythrocytes and links up to the adjacent erythrocyte. That's why we'll see the agglutination, hemagglutination. Okay. After some time, this can be agglutination can be after some time agglutination is agglutination can be agglutination can be it is separate అయిపోతాయి అన్నమాట. After some time erythrocytes are separated. It is mainly due to the enzyme, that is neuraminidase. Okay, it is mainly due to the enzyme neuraminidase, which splits the N-acetyl neuraminidic acid. Because of that, this detachment of the virus from cell surface is seen. This process is nothing but the elution. Okay. This process is nothing but the elution. And if you see the antigenic variation, because of this antigenic variations only we'll see so many epidemics and pandemics. This antigenic variation is mainly due to the alloiditol, due to the surface antigens like hemagglutinin and neuraminidase. This variation is mainly due to the mutations which may cause danger in a human immune system, which may unable to recognize the new viral strain. So antigenic variation is high in type A influenza virus, whereas less commonly seen in type B, not in type C. Okay. If you see the terms of this antigenic shift versus drift, antigenic drift, these are the antigenic variation terms or processes that are usually occurring in the influenza viruses. What is these terms? Antigenic drift is nothing but it's a gradual, continuous, ongoing process. Gradual, continuous, sequential process that occurs at regular intervals. So at regular intervals it may occur. It may be due to the mutations. So the formed new strain due to the antigenic drift may react with the previous strain. Okay, because genetic variation is only a minimal when compared to the genetic variation is minimal in this antigenic drift. So the formed new strain may react with antisera of the predecessor strain. Even though it is a new strain, it may react with the antisera of the predecessor strain. It may lead to epidemics only. Whereas if you see the antigenic shift, it is a sudden, abrupt change. Okay, sudden, abrupt, drastic change in the antigen. Drastic change in the surface antigen results in the formation of the novel strain. Okay, here the formed novel strain is different from the predecessor strain. So because of that, it doesn't react with the antisera of the predecessor strain. So which may lead to this novel strain that occurred due to the antigenic due to the process of this antigenic shift, results usually associated with the pandemics, because results in formation of the pandemics. So if you see this flow chart, how this antigenic drift and antigenic shift can be explained. I'm going to explain this. Here, this is one influenza strain that is already told. This hemagglutinin contains 15 subtypes and giramitase contains 9 subtypes. So H2N2 strain, one subtype. Okay, human subtype H2N2. When this this strain is susceptible to the pigs, and avian strain like H3N8 is also susceptible to the pig. Here in this pig, that is a host. In this host, recombination will take place between the H2N2 and H3N8, results in the formation of the a new strain, novel strain, that is a human H3 and N2. So here H3 and N2. So a new novel strain is formed by using a new host, different animal. Results in the formation of the new strain. Here and it has the even though it acquires the a new subtypes, it has the capability to spread. It has the capability to spread very fast. Then only it causes spread fast, and also it has to infect the humans. Then only it causes the pandemics. Because fast ga undali at the same time, and human immune system doesn't recognize the new strain. That's why the person may get the complications. And if you see the antigenic drift, it occurs this influenza strain, any subtype. In this only it is only a at regular intervals only genetic changes will occur due to the point mutations of HA and NA genes. Results in a novel strain, but the genes of this novel strain a bit related to the predecessor strain. So this doesn't have that much capability to produce pandemics, because it antibodies related antibodies may be produced by the immune system of the humans. This is about the antigenic shift and antigenic drift. See the epidemiology of this. Influenza type A responsible for the major pandemics, and B a little bit less severe. C causes milder infections. Mortality rate of influenza is 1%. Who are infected for this influenza are who is very young, like infants or children, are very old, who are very susceptible, because immune system is not well developed in children, whereas in this old persons, in old persons, immune system is wanes up. If you see the pathophysiology of this influenza, pathogenesis of this influenza, the route of entry of this influenza is mainly through respiratory tract. Mainly through the respiratory tract. Experimentally, it can be infected through aerosols, and for clinical manifestations, the intranasal instillation may be necessary for volunteers for knowing the pathophysiology of the influenza. Whenever the influenza virus enters into the respiratory tract, it will go and absorb onto the respiratory epithelial cells. Absorb onto the respiratory epithelial cells and destroys the epithelial cells, which may lead to loss of ciliary function, and modifies mucous lining, local inflammation, and there is a secondary bacterial infection, After that, in severe cases, we'll see the viral pneumonia, particularly associated with the hyperemia. There is a thickening of the alveolar ducts, alveoli. Sometimes hyaline membrane can also be seen. There is a capillary thrombosis. And there is a interstitial infiltration of the leukocytes. These are some of the pathological features of the influenza virus. In late stages, there is an infiltration of the macrophages, which may infiltration with the macrophages. After some time, there is a desquamation of the alveolar cells also can be seen. If you see the clinical features of this influenza viral infection, incubation period is very short, that is 1 to 3 days only. At this 1 to 3 days only, and in some cases may present. This influenza viral infection may present as mild or asymptomatic to fulminant rapidly fatal pneumonia. Sometimes it may present with headache, fever. Sometimes it may present with abdominal pain. Sometimes it may present with secondary bacterial infection. We see the complications of this influenza in severe cases. It may be divided as pulmonary complications and non-pulmonary complications. Pulmonary complications are viral pneumonia, secondary bacterial infection, asthma, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. And there is exacerbation of other conditions like diabetes, hypertension. So chronic medical conditions also there. In chronic medical conditions also, we'll see the exacerbations. Non-pulmonary complications are myositis, cardiac complication, toxic shock syndrome, Guillain-Barré syndrome. These are some of the non-pulmonary complications of the influenza viral infection. After the clinical manifestations, we'll see about this laboratory diagnosis. In laboratory diagnosis, the tests that are available for this influenza viral infection are: first one is demonstration of the virus antigen. Demonstration of this virus antigen can be done by using the immunofluorescence. Virus antigen which are present on the nasopharyngeal cells can be demonstrated by using the immunofluorescence microscopy. Next one is isolation of the virus. For isolation of the virus, clinical specimen should be taken. Clinical specimens can be taken by that is goggling of the throat wash. This sample is taken in the saline broth or buffered salt solution. Okay, and this one is this clinical sample. Using this clinical sample, virus can be isolated by using the chick embryo or monkey kidney. Cell lines like monkey kidney cell lines. Here in this process, for growing the virus in the chick embryo, first we have to take 11 to 13 days chick embryo, and the sample is inoculated into the allantoic cavity, incubated at 35 degrees centigrade for 3 days. 35 degrees centigrade for 3 days. After that, the egg is chilled, and allantoic cavity and amniotic fluid is separately harvested. A virus can be isolated. Virus can be detected by using the heme agglutination test. Monkey kidney cell lines are also used for the cultivation of this influenza virus. Next one is serology. In serology, Heme agglutination inhibition test is usually used for detection of the for detection of the influenza viral infection, but but it has disadvantages because of the non-specific inhibitors which are present in the serum. Non-specific inhibitors present on the in the serum. Next one is complement fixation test. Complement fixation test. The complement fixation with ribonucleoprotein antigen can be used for detection and purification detection of the antibodies against these ribonucleoprotein antigens. It is mainly used for purification and concentrating the antibodies. Okay. Next, viral surface antigen is also used for detection of the antibody by using the complement fixation test. And radial immunodeficient test is also used by using the agar gel diffusion, where in this case also antibodies against the influenza virus can be detected. Next test is PCR based diagnosis. Here in this PCR polymerase chain reaction, specific primers can be strain specific primers is used. Test can be performed in a multiplex PCR, which is more specific and sensitive. If you see the rapid diagnostic test, it requires less than 30 minutes, which is 90% specific and 70% sensitive. Whereas a viral culture is a gold standard test, but it requires a long period. Results can be obtained at about 7 days. With the help of this monkey kidney cell lines, vaccines can be prepared. With the serology, it requires paid serum samples. So there is a delay for the reporting. It may take more than 2 weeks. If you see the RT-PCR, it is most sensitive. It is more widely available. So most sensitive and specific also. For immunofluorescence microscopy, it requires intact cells, and skilled or experienced person is required for detection of the viral antigen and the nasopharyngeal cells. This is another flowchart showing the subtypes which are caused pandemics. In the history. That is, during 1889, Russian influenza. It is caused by subtype H2N2. World Hong Kong flu. It is caused by H3N8 during the period of 1900. Spanish influenza caused by subtype H1N1 during the period of 1980. And another subtype is Asian influenza, that is H2N2, that occurred during the period of 1957. Next one is Hong Kong influenza, that occurred due to subtype H3N2 during the period of 1968. Next pandemic that occurred during the period of 2009, that is caused by H1N1. This is nothing but a swine flu. These are some of the subtypes that are caused pandemics in the history. If you see the prophylaxis of this influenza, inactivated vaccines are available previously, because previously they are prepared by using the virus which are partially purified and partially purified and treated with formalin. Due to the toxic reactions, they are not used nowadays. They are not used. Another vaccine is subunit vaccine. Here, in this case, the virus is, virus is used. Here this virus is purified. It causes a less minimum toxic, subunit vaccine. Here the vaccine, here the virus is purified one. So it is a little bit more advanced, a little bit more good than the inactivated vaccine. Next one is recombinant vaccine. If recombinant vaccines are prepared, because recombinant vaccines are, why these recombinant vaccines are prepared? Because here we are getting we are getting novel strains due to the antigenic variations. At that juncture, the human immune system unable to produce the antibodies to the novel strain. Okay, novel strain. For this purpose, novel strain. So for this purpose, vaccines have to be produced. But another disadvantage is to produce a vaccine to the normal strain, it requires 6 to 12 months for its preparation. Okay, so that is one disadvantage of the vaccines. So కొత్త స్ట్రెయిన్ వచ్చినప్పుడు vaccine prepare చేయడం కోసం, ప్రొడక్షన్ చేయడం కోసం, it may take almost 6 to 12 months. At that period, this virus may spread all over the world. That is one important drawback for the preparation of the vaccine. Even though recombinant vaccines are available, here these recombinant vaccines possess the growth characters of old established strain and surface antigens of the new variant. Why we are using this here old established strain? Because old established strain have the capacity to grow easily in the cell cultures or in the chick embryos. Okay, whereas for new strain it requires so much of time. It has to be serially passed. Then only it adapts to the either cell lines or to the chick embryos. For that purpose only old established strain is used. So it has the capacity to grow in the chick embryo or cell lines, which contains surface antigens of the new variant. So in this way, vaccines can be prepared. This is recombinant vaccine. Next, if you see the live vaccine, here this recombinant vaccine doesn't produce any local immunization. Because to avoid this disadvantage, live vaccines have been prepared. Live vaccines has been prepared. This live vaccines virus can be prepared by attenuating the virus by repeated egg passage. Okay, by repeated egg passage, which may cause local immunization. Another approach to live vaccine is the use of temperature-sensitive mutant. Okay, here this temperature-sensitive mutant has the capacity to grow at 30 to 35 degrees centigrade. The temperature 32 to 35 degrees centigrade, the temperature which is present in the nasopharyngeal area. It has the capacity to grow in that area. Live temperature-sensitive mutant. But doesn't grow in the lung, which has a temperature of 37 degrees centigrade. So this temperature-sensitive mutant has the capacity to grow, is one of the established strain, has the capacity to grow very fastly, which contains new antigenic, contains new surface antigens. Okay, this can be given as intranasal instillation. Okay, intranasal instillation can be given by using the live vaccines. The drugs that are commonly used for the treatment of this influenza viral infection is amantadine, rimatrine, zanamivir, oseltamivir. So other vaccines are also available: trivalent inactivated vaccine, recombinant HA influenza vaccine, and live attenuated influenza vaccines are also available. This is this is the picture showing the international installation of the live vaccine. Can be given to the people between the age of 2 to 49 years of age, but pregnancy is contraindicated. These are the symptoms of this is the differentiating table of common cold and influenza symptoms. Another one is avian influenza that occurred due to H5N1. Here the incubation period is 3 to 14 days. The birds, whenever these birds are infected, they found dead, and there is a drop in egg production. They also showed neurological signs: depression, anorexia, ruffled feathers, comb swollen, cyanotic features are also seen. Conjunctivitis, respiratory signs are also seen. We see the human symptoms. These are some of the human symptoms: fever, headache, muscle aches, cough, sore throat, eye infection, pneumonia, acute respiratory distress due to the avian influenza infection. This is the another picture showing the pandemic that occurred in chickens, that occurred during the period of Hong Kong flu. Because of this containment measures and slaughtering of all chickens, which could have been prevent the spread of the pandemic to the humans. At that time, Hong Kong flu. At that time, only 10 confirmed cases have been recognized. And swine flu. This swine flu is seen during the period of 2009, which had first originated in Mexico and spread to the US, caused by H1N1. It is originated from the pigs. Okay, caused by subtype A, influenza virus type A. Usually doesn't have spread. Usually doesn't cause any spread to the people, but sometimes it may cause. Sometimes it may cause. If it causes, it may cause pandemic. Caused by H1N1. It is usually derived from a human influenza, one of the human influenza strain and one part of the avian influenza strain, and combined to form recombinant strain in the pig, results in the formation of the swine influenza strain. These are the common symptoms. How to protect your children from swine flu? As usual, we are seeing nowadays also for corona pandemic. These are do's and don'ts. Cover mouth and nose when you cough or sneeze. Wash your hands often with soap. Avoid touching your eyes, nose or mouth. Avoid touching your eyes, nose or mouth. Avoid crowded places. Stay home more than an arm's length from a person suffering from flu. Drink plenty of water, nutritious food. Avoid handshakes, contact breathing. Do not spit in public, and do not self-medicate. These are the things nowadays we are also following. The drugs that are commonly used for the swine flu is Tamiflu, and Paramavir is also used. Paramavir, Oseltamivir, Zanamivir, Tamiflu is commonly used for treatment of the swine flu. So for preparation of the vaccine, it takes 6 to 12 months. At the time, it may spread to the whole population present in the world also. So this completes the orthomyxovirus.